I was at a dinner party the other night and I happened to strike a conversation with an older gentleman who had been in the armed forces in his country, who was very widely traveled and very well read. It turned out to be one of the most interesting conversations I'd had in a very long time. And at the end of the conversation, he said to me, Jayshree, I am so glad I met you. It's been a pleasure. This has been a really amazing conversation. And I said to him, you're the one who's done all the talking here. And he said to me, he said, there is a skill that is very undervalued and underrated, and that's the skill of being able to ask the right questions and to be able to get the maximum amount of information that you can from the other side. So I laughed and I told him, I hope you realize you didn't ask me, but I happen to be a lawyer. And we always end up in a situation where we have sort of two different types of questioning. One is what I call a more confrontational and a more competitive questioning scenario, where you want to give away as little as possible, and as the person asking the questions you want to get as much information because you know information is being withheld from you. And then the other one is like the conversation I had with this gentleman, which I say is a more collaborative kind of conversation where you're understanding, you're learning, and sometimes when you're doing deals you end up in a situation where we find that a founder or someone wanting to sell their business is in a collaborative question answer session but ends up giving away a little bit too much. So I always say there is a power in asking the questions, not just answering the questions, and the way you frame the questions is really the trick to the type of answers you get and the value of the answers you get, depending on what you're looking for. It's not a given that if you ask an open-ended question, you're going to get a very long answer. You may get a very short and very uninteresting and irrelevant answer, even if you ask an open question. So whilst we are taught to ask open questions rather than yes/no questions, there are different circumstances in which both actually work their magic. And it depends on your end goal in terms of why you're questioning and what kind of answers you're looking to seek. So as I said, I learned a lot from the gentleman, and I also learned that some of the skills in relation to asking questions are not something that you need to be born with, are totally something you can develop and totally something that you can master once you have a very clear idea of where you're trying to get to with that questioning.